the business. We're seeing all kinds of cloud services as well to handle and manage documents. But with all of these resources that are available to all of the users, we're usually doing this from a computer that is equipped with a network adapter. And that network adapter can reach these services through the internet, which begs the question, what about print? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let's take a little bit of a quick review about print. And throughout the history of computer printing, we have seen a lot of innovations when it comes to print operations and, in general, how a print job actually reaches a given print device. It really hasn't changed a whole lot. And I'd say probably the past 50 years, it's more or less been the same. You have different operating systems, and each one of those has their own spool and their own print queue management system. There's all kinds of things such as printer description languages that will render the appearance and the layout of the print job. Then, from a connectivity perspective, there's a path to actually output that print job over to the device. It's generally done through a local port. And even when that port is shared and a user could be printing through a printer share, the port or the path to the printer is still technically local. So print in and of itself is going through some significant change. And one of the big drivers behind that is the demand for cloud solutions. In general, these cloud solutions are going to bring a lot more innovation when it comes to the print operations. So, both now and in the future, we're going to continue to see changes. Print technology providers are also transitioning to the cloud, which takes us to PaperCut Hive. One of the innovators with print, air quotes, is PaperCut. In fact, you might recall at the end of 2020, I'm pretty sure it was 2020, um, Google had actually recommended PaperCut Mobility Print as the alternative to Google Cloud Print. That was actually deprecated. In fact, if you might remember, they never did pull the beta tag off of that. But I digress slightly. Fast forward just the following season into the spring, roughly, because it was right soon thereafter, PaperCut introduced PaperCut Hive, which is a cloud native print management solution that enables users to print from anywhere. And the organization is administered through a web browser, as long as that web browser has internet access. Now, PaperCut Hive as a cloud native platform has some core functions. So instead of trying to port an on-prem technology over into the cloud, what PaperCut wanted to do was take a completely fresh approach when it came to building this platform. And so, interestingly, one of the things that we hear from IT when we get on calls with customers is, hey, we're trying to remove print servers. So, with that, let's begin with a term that is referred to as the edge mesh. Now, one of the ideas behind the edge mesh is we're taking the local computing power of each of the different clients that are inside of PaperCut Hive to do what would be considered the traditional work of a print server. These clients all work together as nodes within the edge mesh to bring a couple of things. One is intelligence, and the other thing is resiliency. When it comes to print and the things that a customer may be printing, and as information is flowing into the edge mesh and out of the edge mesh, typically with a print job. One of the things PaperCut wanted to do was place security at the very beginning of the development process. That's referred to as shift left security, meaning on the left side, we're starting with security. And when we bring the internet into these things and considering what customers may be printing, that was going to be an important part. So, along the lines of security, in order to enter the edge mesh, every laptop or every mobile device, every desktop, any server that tries to connect into the edge mesh is authenticated and authorization is required. That's what we mean by zero trust network. So, with print jobs being replicated into the edge mesh and staged before delivering it to the print device, during this process, it's important to know that all of the data in that process is encrypted, whether the data is in motion or whether the data is at rest. So, the final thing I'd like to mention about PaperCut Hive is this idea of continuous delivery, where new updates and functionality are released in real time, which takes us to some of these features that are in PaperCut Hive. And one of the things I'd like to do is talk about just some of the different recent features that have been added. For example, when we look back from the conception of PaperCut Hive up until now, one of the things PaperCut Hive has tried to do is deliver features that are useful and that they're based on customer feedback. Not to mention, there's also all of the support calls that have come in with PaperCut Hive, and it's only made the product even better. For example, there's a feature in PaperCut Hive called Autopilot. This is available right now, provides intelligent routing, and it's designed to help optimize the print path. In other words, how a job actually makes it to the printer or how it reaches has been optimized. Things, for example, such as print profiles that can give a PaperCut Hive admin a preferred choice, whether it's autopilot for that intelligent routing or whether the user or the admin in the organization needs more control over the print path. Another thing that's been added into PaperCut Hive is the idea of single sign-on. And we're not talking about just single sign-on through an OAuth process, but rather we're talking about being able to do user authentication through SAML. Um, the other thing too is over time, PaperCut Hive has learned that we could probably do a better job at onboarding our end users. So that process has been simplified inside of PaperCut Hive. One of the ways that that's been done is by providing different options to be able to invite users into the system. There's a few other things too, such as being able to assign job cost to printers for the cost of printing. And one of the other things too is depending on your region and the data center that you're actually connected to, there are 4 total, by the way, but here in the US, we know that because you are in the US, we will make sure that the currency settings are correct inside of PaperCut Hive. And with some of those recent features out of the way, let's move into the Q1 release. We've now arrived at some of the features that we are going to be seeing here. Now, at this time, we are currently in public beta for this release. It's already gone through the authorized partner and the reseller availability. And so these features that we're going to be going through are now available for beta. We are expecting general availability on April the 24th, which my calendar says that's next week. So stay tuned. We should see these features that we're going to be going through show up here for our customers next week. Speaking of features, here is what's coming and what we're going to be going through today. So, print quotas. This is something that has been asked for, and we're finally going to see that. Um, we're going to step through some of the new print delivery options that are available inside of PaperCut Hive. Also, a feature that probably doesn't on the surface sound really exciting. I'll be honest, it's probably my favorite feature, and that's multi-org login. We'll get into that, and I'll explain why I actually like that a lot. Um, Rico, the full embedded application, was actually the first app that was developed for PaperCut Hive. It's gone through an improvement, and we'll talk about what that is going to look like. Also, a new app for Epson has been added. We'll go through that as well. And then finally, we're going to talk about a feature that I think everybody's been asking for, and that's print queue deployment. So hang on, let's go through and we'll take a high level view of each one of these features. So let's start with print quotas. What this is going to allow customers to do is give a user a balance that will help them to control the amount of not only the print, but for those devices that have the full embedded, also be able to provide a way to control the costs on copies. The other thing is that by setting the spending limits for a user, this is going to help users and encourage them to have responsible usage within the system. Uh, Not to mention some other benefits that go along with that is just reducing the overall environmental impact. And the other thing too is when it comes to the amount of resources that an organization can spend on print, this helps keep all of that spending fair where you don't have anybody, potentially abusing the system. So, continuing along with print quotas, one thing that is important to know is that when a user reaches their limit, they will see a message that there are not enough funds to be able to cover that job. They're going to see that message when they are releasing the job, both at the multifunction device as well as the mobile device, because users can release their job from the mobile app. Now, for the moment, there is the ability to add a quota, but it's only for all users at this time. Stay tuned because another feature that will be coming out later this year is what we're expecting is groups. And that's going to give us the ability to place quota to users that are in different groups. This is something that we see in PaperCut MF, but for now, it's just all users. Now, this current feature set is going to be targeted probably more for, um, if I think about a school, the primary and secondary schools, sometimes referred to as K through 12. Uh, and in the case where they don't need any groups or they don't need to pick any shared accounts. Um, so the existing feature for print quotas is really going to be aimed more at the K through 12 for now. So this is one of the pretty cool features that has been added into PaperCut Hive. Moving right along to the next feature. This one's actually pretty darn cool, and that is some different print delivery options that have been added into PaperCut Hive. Quite honestly, this is going to be a little bit of a game changer because what we're doing when we look at these new capabilities is that we're taking advantage of the multi-function device that has the full embedded app. And what we're doing from the device is we're actually pulling the job. Let me explain that just maybe a little bit further. So prior to this feature, the way that PaperCut Hive worked is it used more of what we would call or refer to as a push-based workflow. And a user's client or one of the clients inside of the edge mesh was needed in order to send the job to the print device when it was time to release that job. Now, the workflow is more pull based. And basically, what that means is from the print device itself, it's actually going to retrieve the job on demand instead of requiring a client to push the job over to the device. The thing that is important for the moment is that this is only available on Lexmark and Kyocera devices. The next manufacturer that we're going to see, and it shouldn't be too long from now, is going to be for the Ricoh. It's currently under development right now, but they're tidying that up. And then a little bit later this year, we're going to see more manufacturers follow this. So just to reinforce this, we're taking advantage of the modern multifunction device capabilities. So this is probably not going to be something that you're going to see in older devices. Of course, any device that we can put PaperCut Hive on will be able to do that, but it is because of the modern device and its capabilities that PaperCut is leveraging in order to pull that job in. So from the device, without the need for a client, we can allow for that job to be delivered either from a local client or from the cloud node. And these delivery options can be configured to do one or the other. When we're pulling from the cloud node, where this can help a customer is eliminate the need for an available client inside of the edge mesh. So for some customers that are in a zero trust network environment, this can actually be really useful because sometimes the device is not accessible or reachable from a client. So there's no way to get that job. This is one of the things that we've learned over time is when we place PaperCut Hive in different environments, we're going to find situations just like this. So in the case where we pull the job from the cloud node, we have to enable the cloud node for that to be able to work. Um, Probably the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is this is going to reduce the amount of complexity um, that one might find when a job needs to be delivered because it's coming directly from the cloud in the case of enabling the cloud node. Now, that doesn't mean that that's one, the only way that it could work. The other thing is that not all customers are going to want to turn the cloud node on. So, what that means is that the local node from the edge mesh, that actually may be the best option for certain customers that have concerns about flipping the cloud node on due to data sovereignty concerns, for instance, the type of information that is on the print jobs or the nature of the jobs that are being print. They may not want that cloud node to be turned on. In fact, by default, whenever a new PaperCut organization is set up, the cloud node is off by default, and that's by design. If we want to turn that on, which interestingly enough, probably at least 90% or better of customers will turn that on because that's one of the things that they're looking for. But for those customers that do not want their information to pass through the cloud, which is kind of interesting because we're looking for a cloud solution, but we don't want the print job to go to the cloud. In that case, where they're really looking for in PaperCut Hive is the ability to have cloud-based management, but keep the data local. And that's one of the I think benefits and the beauty to the edge mesh or the local edge mesh, maybe be another way to put that. So with that, stay tuned. This is going to be again, I think, a bit of a game changer. Now, I said there was a feature that I was really excited, and that's multi-org login. For I think most customers that have PaperCut Hive, this is probably not going to be a big deal. But if you are an admin with more than one organization that you need to manage, this is huge. Um, with my case, because I might need to log into um, our uh, NFR or our Eco Print Queue PaperCut Hive organization, it uses my email address in order for me to get into that organization. But if I need to manage another organization or at least be invited as an admin, I would have needed in the past prior to this feature a separate email address. And then it starts to get to a point where, and I actually found this out. Did you know that you're only allowed to create so many free accounts with Google? I did not know that until PaperCut Hive when I had to create more than one email address. And it makes it a little difficult to manage all those, but I actually reached a limit where Google said, you've kind of reached your limit. So anyway, now all I need is my one email address. And if I'm an admin inside of more than one organization, I can use that one email address now to be able to log into more than one Hive. Now, this will also be beneficial if you're a reseller and you need to have admin access to one of your customers' organizations. That'll be useful for you. You won't have to create a separate email organization. I love this feature. I think it's great. I think it's my favorite, but I got to be honest. There's actually a lot of cool features in this release here, and we have just a few more to go through. So the next one that I would like to go through with you is the full embedded application for Rico. So I mentioned earlier that it's actually the first one that was developed for PaperCut Hive. It has been revamped and improved. How so? I'm glad you asked. The short answer is that when you're at the panel and you're working with the Hive embedded application for Rico, if you were looking at the old one versus the new one, you're going to see these thumbnails that show the job rather than a list. So the UI itself just looks a little bit more modern. But the other thing too is that it does flow much quicker. It's more responsive when you're touching any of the buttons. And so that faster and smoother experience is, I think, going to be one of the cool things that that any of the existing Rico customers that have PaperCut Hive and have the Rico embedded app, I think they'll find that it just feels a little smoother. I don't want to say snappier in the sense that it snaps, but to kind of use the term that I think some folks will use, that it feels a little snappier. It's a little quicker and more responsive on the touch screen. The other thing too is PaperCut Hive has, for their embedded applications for the different manufacturers, they have provided some that we refer to as a one-click installation. And if you've installed the full embedded application for Rico, you would, meaning prior to this, the way that works, you would download a package. You could actually use the rock tool that's available in PaperCut MF to install that. So if you did that, you would have had to have had a separate rock tool in order to get that installed. Now, you also could have downloaded the zip file, log into the web image monitor, and you could have added that manually as a Rico, or I'm sorry, as a app on the Rico. But now with the one-click install inside of the web interface, when you click on install, the only thing you have to do is put in the admin name and password that you would log into the web interface and click one-click install, and it installs. So much easier to install now, and I think that's really going to be cool. I think all of these are cool. Which interestingly enough, the next one, I wasn't sure what to think about it at first, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, actually, this is actually pretty cool. And that's the full embedded app for Epson devices. Because Epson devices have been added into PaperCut Hive, interestingly enough, there are a lot of customers out there that use Epson devices. In fact, you may be a reseller for a major brand, but may walk into an environment where the customer has Epson devices. This being added into the lineup helps you to get that account in a more comfortable place, or in a place where embracing Hive becomes an easier decision. It also was designed using that same set of tooling that the Rico app is using. So the experience, even for a small device, is nice and smooth when you're on the touchscreen for the device. And of course, as I've already kind of went through in terms of the benefit of having a one-click installation, this makes it really easy to get the Epson devices added um, for PaperCut Hive. So in that respect, I think adding even more devices to the lineup of PaperCut Hive helps any customer that is considering Hive um, make the choice a lot easier. Now, I got one more feature for you, and that is print queue deployment. Now, what is print queue deployment? Oh, glad you asked. So, you are now able to think of PaperCut Hive having a very similar feature set to PaperCut MF. It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of similar. And that feature in MF is called print deploy. Now, PaperCut did not want to add print deploy for PaperCut Hive as the name, so we just call it print queue deployment. And when you go into PaperCut Hive in the admin dashboard, you're able to go into the queues and drivers section. Of course, you have to be an admin to do this. And there, you are able to create not only additional Find Me queues, but you're also able to create direct queues. This is big because traditionally with PaperCut Hive, the way printing has always worked is you print it to the PaperCut printer. It used the PaperCut Global PostScript driver, and you submitted your print job to then go over to a full embedded, a light embedded, or with your mobile device, and then release the job. So the print operations were divided up into two parts, or separated into submitting the print job and then going over to release the job. We're now able to create print queues that print directly to the actual device. This is something that not only have we been asked for, but often when we talk with customers about PaperCut Hive, they always fell into a use case where it was really important to be able to print directly to a printer, but they also needed an easy way to get that printer over to the user. So it was always two-part. It was never just, I need to print directly, or I need to get a print queue to a user. It was usually both. So now we are able to create both a direct and a find me print queue. Because this feature is in beta, or while this feature is in beta, there's a tag up at the top that says basically that you're allowed to configure up to 10 print queues. We will see these print queue limits that are currently there right now lifted prior to the release. So during the beta period, you could create 5 Find Me printers and 5 direct queues. Now, when we create these print queues, keep in mind that these are only for Windows computers and for Mac computers. When we create these printer queues, what we're doing is we're uploading a print driver to PaperCut Hive for that print queue. This means that both the Find Me print queue and the direct print queue can have a manufacturer specific driver in the case of Windows, or in the case of Mac, you would be uploading the PPD for that Mac. And it's only these two operating systems that we have print queue deployment for. This is where it's a little bit different than with print deploy inside of PaperCut MF. One of the things that you're able to do there is include or encompass a few more operating systems. So keep in mind that with print queue deployment, we're really talking about the Windows and the Mac computers. But again, the cool thing is you're able to upload a manufacturer specific driver. It gets uploaded. You test the print queue that you are looking to create. And then once you've tested it, it'll test it. You can put it out to one client for testing. And then after that, if it works and everything is set up, you set your printing preferences up the way you want to, and you test the printing to make sure it works. You can then at that point go ahead and deploy it to all users, which takes me to a very important piece for as part of the release right now, and that is that this print queue gets deployed to all users. In a future release, we're going to see groups added into PaperCut Hive, so that way users will belong into groups, and then we'll be able to then deploy particular print queues to particular users. I wanted to really emphasize on this because probably the most common use case that I hear when we talk to customers about PaperCut Hive is that IT has one particular printer that they want to deploy just to the executive team or the president of the company or the CEO. There's also a few cases where there's a niche user that needs to get a particular printer and they only wanted to go to that one. But most of the time, a vast majority is we're trying to get a printer to the CEO and they want that particular printer that's only available to them to be deployed. So today, at this moment, it is all users that get the printer. When we get groups, which again is coming soon, then we'll be able to distribute that. Now, one more thing that I need to mention about this feature that's very important is that PaperCut is working hard on getting this feature released by the March 24th, which is next week. I mentioned that date at the very, very beginning. We may see a little bit of a delay on the print queue deployment. Uh, we don't have an exact timetable. However, the best estimate that we're getting is going to be sometime in April next month. So the possibility of this being delayed for roughly about a month is what we're currently looking at as far as our best estimate. While this was originally targeted to be part of the Q1 2025 release, we'll probably see a bit of a delay. Now, that said, any PaperCut Hive user, whether you're a reseller whether you're a customer and you want to try this out, we can get access for any organization to enable this feature if this feature is not enabled. It's actually available on the Percolator, and anyone can sign up to get that. So we're only talking about when this will be made part of the general availability and all users get this feature. If you have anybody that needs early access, uh, that is definitely something that can be done through the Percolator. In fact, the last word I got from PaperCut is they are and would be delighted to have other customers try this feature out. So heads up, it's going to be coming in the general availability not too far from now, but we'll probably be on a little bit of a delay past our release for Q1 next month. All right. And I think, is that the last one? Yes, it is. That is the last one. So I'm going to take a look at our chat and see if there's any questions. Okay. Looks like yes, you can see my screen. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, very cool. Oh yes, you're very welcome. I'm glad to do it. Let's see. Okay. Here's a good question. So for print quotas, is there uh, a way to do an auto reset at the start of, give me a second because this, I need to, I need to figure out how do I get, oh, there we go. You have to click on it to do an auto reset at the start of, say, a semester or a quarter. Yes, you're referring to scheduling. The short answer is yes, there is a way to do a schedule, and there's also a way to do a bulk change. That is going to be something that you can do with the quotas. So short answer there is yes. All right, very cool. Okay, now I have to figure out oh, you click the back button. There we go. All right, very cool. Let's see. Uh, the other question here. Yes, actually, you will be able to get a copy of this recording. What we typically do, and I suspect that this won't be much different than in past webinars, is we'll actually send this up on GoToStage, which is another part of GoToWebinar where the viewing or the, I'm sorry, the recording can be viewed. And if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this, I need to double check. I think, do we send the link out to this? I think we do, but I'll see if we can get confirmation on that. All right, fantastic. Let's see. So yeah, click on that. There we go. So I can actually see the whole thing. I'm loving this new interface here in GoToWebinar, as you can tell. Uh, okay, so here's a good question. Any chance that we may have a may have guest printing as an option? And the example might be with students and with the library. Okay, so that's a very good question. I need to give you a two-part response. The way the PaperCut Hive works today is the idea of an anonymous user is not currently a concept in PaperCut Hive, meaning part of the overall security behind PaperCut Hive is that we trust yet verify. It's the zero trust architecture that goes around PaperCut Hive. So with that, you can have a guest, but it's not an anonymous guest. And I'm speaking for today, that any user can come into the organization, whether it's through invitation by an admin or it is through the user onboarding process that a user might go through. That user, when they sign up and they become a user inside of PaperCut Hive, they're now going to be authenticated as part of the process. So that's the general nature of how Hive works. That said, here's the second part to this, and that is I do know that PaperCut Hive, because this is not the first time we have been asked this question, that they are looking at what we would probably typically refer to as a guest or some type of an anonymous guest. I believe what they're trying to do is explore how can they go through getting that set up while maintaining the overall security profile of the zero trust architecture inside of PaperCut Hive. So for now, on the second part, nothing yet, but I do know that that question has been raised and that PaperCut is definitely looking to that. So thank you for that question. That's a very good question. Okay. Here's another good question. Shared accounts. I am glad you asked that question. I did not cover it. It is not part of our Q1 2025 release. I do not have a time frame for you, but what I can tell you is, well, I might give you a two-part on this one. Let me give you the last part first. Every moment that we get on a call with PaperCut, meaning when EcoPrintQ gets on a call with PaperCut, you could probably ask anybody at PaperCut, from your channel manager to whoever. We are always asking for this feature, and I think PaperCut has heard loud and clear that we need to have that. So that's the second part first. Now, the first part was really the order I was thinking I would say this is, um, I don't have a time frame on that because that part is actually being actively worked on. So what I think PaperCut is doing, well, I know they're developing it, but what I think they're doing is they're trying to find out the best way to put this together. I don't want to over speculate on what I think that's going to look like. To me, the most logical path is that when a user gets onboarded, they install a PaperCut Hive client. Will they work something into the PaperCut Hive client that gets installed on a user's computer when they go through the onboarding process? I want to think so, but I don't want to give you too much speculation. What I will tell you is that it is being worked on, so for sure stay tuned. It's being worked on to the part where it is possible we could potentially see it later this year, maybe, but again, no timeline. That's my gut telling me that, just given the, I would say, the frequency by which that feature comes up, and it comes up a lot. I think there's a lot of opportunity with the shared accounts when we get to higher education, because that's going to be a big thing for billing departments. And of course, for our professional customers, such as law firms, being able to select a client matter is going to be huge there. So yes, very good question. Thank you for asking. All right, let's see. I think the next one. Very good. Scan to network folder like a shared folder. Oh, so this is a very good question, and it's common. We get this a lot. I don't think we're ever going to see that feature. I want to say I don't think we will, because because Hive being a cloud-based product and bringing in scan to folder as an on-prem thing, the idea behind what I think a PaperCut Hive customers look like is they're trying to move or shift closer or adapt the cloud even more. That said, we have talked about it, and we have said that we are getting asked for this a lot. If I can share with you what I feel is kind of we want to try to be the customer's advocate on why they need that, because that is one of the questions that PaperCut does ask, is if we're looking to a cloud product, why are we looking to do something that's kind of more on-prem? And the answer that I give is because not all customers have fully moved to the cloud. That's number one. And number two, a lot of customers are still in a hybrid environment if they've even gone to the cloud. There was a survey that was taken, and this wasn't necessarily directly related to PaperCut Hive, but this is just more about what your strategy was in moving to the cloud. This was a question that was like a survey question asked to customers. And by this year, 2025, that most customers said that they planned on moving at least some part. And then the other question was, how are you going to do that? And here was the interesting thing. The majority of the answer was, we don't know. Now, I don't want to dwell on that part too much, except to say that I think that we're in this transition, especially when it comes to print. It's that awkward period in between what the future will hold and where we are and where we've been. But but scan to folder to me, and this is the way I've tried to champion the idea, is that we're still not fully moved over to the cloud. We're in a hybrid environment in a lot of cases. I don't think PaperCut Hive is against the idea. I think initially they were probably more, but I think they've warmed up a little bit more. For now, I'm going to say stay tuned, and we're going to keep trying to champion for that. So very good question. Okay, let's see. Here's a good question. For the admin, for the PaperCut Hive admin, can they be set, and I'm gonna, come on, I'm trying to scroll down. Sorry, it's this window setup here for me to see the question in its entirety. Hold on, let me try. Can I do that? Well, that helps a little bit. I can stretch it out wider. Limited setting for admin. Can they be set to view reports only? That's a very good question. And when I see this question, I'm thinking about the granularity of permissions that can be assigned inside of PaperCut MF. The short answer is not today, and I haven't seen anything from a roadmap perspective that gives me any indication that this is something that we might see only. But this is a really good question, and I think just making a quick note to jot this one down because that's actually a really good idea. And the one reason I think it's a good idea as I jot this down is it really does fit into the overall idea behind PaperCut Hive and security. And along with security, which security means a lot of things to a lot of people, but one of the concepts is least use privilege. And I made a note to see if we can't get that asked. Thank you for sharing. That's a good question. All right. I think we got one more. Okay. How about anything to provide feedback to a user, such as being able to advise to redirect a print job to the print shop, or a cost-effective copier, a more cost-effective copier, since there is no client that can message to the user? Oh, this is a very good question. I do not have anything from a roadmap perspective on this particular feature. However, when we look at one of the other features that we had previously mentioned, which is shared accounts, that would be one of those things where how do we get a pop-up to the user, whether it's through shared account selection or if it's to make a decision. Now, this would be at the time of submitting the print, meaning when I'm on my computer and I choose my PaperCut printer that I'm going to print to, it could be the built-in PaperCut Hive printer or perhaps one of those direct print queues. On the client, when I submit or send or submit the print, what I think is we'll probably see some kind of a client mechanism in the future. Now, on the release side, meaning I'm using my mobile device to release a held job, or if I'm at the panel of the multifunction device with the full embedded or the light embedded, I do get a notification there, not for printer redirection specifically, but one of the areas that we can configure PaperCut Hive is for two-sided, meaning convert it from one-sided to two-sided, or change the color mode from color to black and white to help drive the cost of that particular print job down. So on the release side, we do provide some messaging to the user, but it's only on the release side. Once it's submitted, and this is probably going to affect whenever we send a job to one of our new direct print queues that's available in part of this release, we'll really need something on the front end for the client to get that. So what I think will happen to address this now more specifically is that once PaperCut gets the client portion of this ironed out, then I think you're going to see other things soon follow, such as the shared accounts, such as the ability to provide users some kind of input or perhaps some kind of a job redirection, and it'll probably be when we're using direct print queues. I hope I didn't over explain that. Some of it is a little bit of, I think what needs to come first is the client, but then other cool features like this suggestion, I think will follow. It'll be more of a question of how much longer after that. So I will ask you on this one to stay tuned. And I'm really hoping that in a not too distant release, we'll have more information on what that client or kind of pop-up or messaging would or could look like. So I'll ask you to stay tuned on that. And I guess with that, probably when you see that new release, just as a quick reminder, the direct print queues will probably more than likely be about um, a month delayed. It could be sooner, it could be later, but that's what my gut is telling me. It's probably about a month. They're hard at work on that feature right now. So stay tuned on that. So I think with that, as we come to the top of the hour, once again, I would like to say thank you for taking the time to be with us and to go through the latest upcoming features in PaperCut Hive. And of course, stay tuned as PaperCut continues to evolve and to innovate during this transition with cloud print and of course deliver more features into the product. Before you go, one last thing. If you have any opportunities where you feel there might be any interest with PaperCut Hive, you can always reach out to your channel manager. And if you don't know who your channel manager is, which I doubt it, but in case you don't, you can always send a message to sales